Hey everyone, this is Carlos. I'm the founder and CEO of Product School, and today I'm here with Rapha Cohen, who's the CPO at Waze. Hey Rapha.
Hey Carlos, how are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us again. You've been a huge contributor of the Product School community, giving multiple talks at events, conferences, and now on this podcast. So I appreciate your time. I want to start by asking you about how did you break into product?
So my background is not that different than other PMs, I guess, by means that it is very unusual, and I think like all PMs have unusual backgrounds. That's what's common to them. So my background is in electrical engineering, more specifically like chip design, digital signal processing, telecommunications, information theory. In short, nothing to do with the product management, let alone with product management of mobile apps or transportation, which is what I deal with at Waze. My first product gig 10 years ago was a head of product for DesignArt. That was a company that developed chips and embedded software for cellular networks. But in fact, in this industry, product responsibilities resemble those of a CTO to a very large extent, plus ownership of engineering task prioritization, probably. So I was given this opportunity because I was a technical expert, but I totally lacked any experience in product management. To tell you the whole story, when I was invited for the interview, I actually had to look up what product management actually meant. So I said, yeah, sure, I will interview for the head of product job. I had no idea what it meant. So I had to learn the basic skills of product management. But I earned this opportunity because someone believed I had valuable technical expertise. So there's no product management degree, right? We were just talking about this earlier. When you get an engineering degree from top schools, employers will chase you when you graduate. Top school, computer science, very straightforward, very easy. And for PMs, it's never the case, right? So we all live somewhere on a business, tech, design triangle. To get your first job, you have to bring something super compelling on the table on one of those dimensions, right? And that's why PMs are mostly either ex-engineers or ex-designers or MBA graduates or something like that. So on my first job, I had an amazing mentor. I was very lucky. He was the founder of the company. We built an incredible product, successful business. So that allowed me to grow on the business side, for instance, meeting customers, building a business plan, thinking deeply about costs, about margins, pricing, unit economics, all those things that you don't care about when you're an engineer. And then when we sold the company to Qualcomm, I decided to leave a few years later, and I really wanted to grow in the third dimension, which is design, right? And is there a best school on earth for design than Google? So at the time there wasn't. I don't know if it's true anymore. I didn't check, but I applied for the job. I got the job at Google, and immediately I was exposed to UX design, UX research at the highest level. So by the time I joined Waze a year later, which is a Google subsidiary, which is a very product-centric company, my basic PM skill set was quite complete on the technical side, on the business side, and on the design side. So I started as a PM lead for Carpool Marketplace. After a few months, took over the whole product team of Carpool, then the whole product team of the company, then UX, UXR came gradually. I was very lucky to have the trust of my CEO and the management team at Waze.
And I love asking the question about how someone as successful as you broke into product, because as you said, there's no product management degree, and I believe there shouldn't be. That's a lot of things that you actually need to learn on the go by working with smart people and so on. But there are also some fundamentals that someone needs to tell you. So what's the right split? How did you actually get that type of knowledge passed on without an official product degree?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think that's why I love collaborating and contributing to the community, because I really believe that creating a degree for product management is not the right way to go, right? Like the basics that you need to get once you're either an engineer or a business person or a designer, or from an anthropologist to philosopher, like any field you come from, the extra skill set that you need to develop, the insights are pretty simple and pretty limited. So I really think that those kind of formats, like product school, or just reading books, or listening to podcasts, that's the right way to learn about product management. But really, most of the product management you learn by doing. Right? There's no the theory is very limited. It's very important, and that's why I think it's still very important to be part of the community and to listen to others, to learn from others, and to listen to podcasts and to read books. Super important. But really what you need to know, it's rather limited. What you will really need to know in order to be a successful PM is learning about your industry, learning about your products, learning about your customers, learning about your partners. That's very difficult, but it depends on the product. The actual core PM skills is rather straightforward, simple, and limited, right? The rest you will learn by doing, and you will learn by listening to people. So yeah, I think that I think those communities are super helpful.
So obviously, Waze is a huge product, extremely popular these days, as you mentioned, it's part of Google. So for folks who maybe are not aware of it, can you give us an idea of the scale, especially of the community, and how you think about your product as a community?
Yeah, that's very interesting. Clearly, our community is building the product. For Waze, this is what really differentiated us. That's what created the very special brand that comes with Waze, and more importantly, the sentiment that comes when you use Waze. It's not only the product, it's really the fact that you feel part of a community that is here to help each other out, getting out of traffic, outsmarting traffic altogether, right? So that's something that's very special, very difficult to recreate. There's no a book for how to do this, how to build a brand. Waze, we did this. I'm saying we did this. I wasn't there, right? I joined Waze only 5 years ago, so it's not my doing. It's other very talented people's doing, who built this community as a mean, probably without meaning it, but as a mean to build a brand that is very community centric. And so to give you an idea of the scale, we have close to 150 million active users in the world. They're very concentrated in a few markets. We're very popular in the US, in Brazil, in France, of course, in the UK, some APAC countries. Latam is huge for Waze, but really, what makes the difference is the hyper-local feeling that comes from the fact that actually the people, the system that feeds the data into Waze is actual people who live locally in your community. So I always give this example because I think it's powerful, but we read some research from Google. They were trying to understand how is it that Waze is so popular in Brazil and Google Maps is not as successful as they wished. And so they interviewed users, and there was one user at some point who said, well, we use Waze because it's a Brazilian app, right? And so of course it's not a Brazilian app. Okay, it's not Brazilian coders who build the app, but it's true. It is a Brazilian app because it's Brazilian people who feed the app or the platform with data for the Brazilian users, right? So anywhere you are, the app feels local. It feels like it's built. It's been built by local people, and I think this is why a community is so important. And I think this is the most differentiator of Waze right now, and that truly builds the brand more than the product, more than the routing, more than an accurate ETA. It's really the sentiments of your community will help you going through traffic today.
So as a chief product officer for such an incredible product and community, what does your day-to-day look like?
So CPO means you have two hats. You're VP product and you're also company executive. And so in terms of skills, if you're already running a large team of PMs, there's not that much of a difference between a CPO and VP product. Your day-to-day look pretty similar. There's a significant gap in mindset. You're not owning only the product-related objectives, but together with the other members of the management team, you own all the company objectives, key results, and you're ultimately accountable for the success of the business, not only the success of the product. That's also related to you can build a great product, but the community is not doing their part, or the marketing, the engineering, and then nothing works out, right? So everything has to work together, and that's a big difference in mindset. Like the fact that you own all of the business related objectives of the company. So I read somewhere on Twitter something funny, which I think is very true. When you want to be a GPM, when you're a GPM, you want to be a VP product. When you're a VP product, you want to CPO. When you're a CPO, you want to be a CEO. And when you're a CEO, you want to be a PM, right? I think that's very, very true. And that's the thing that might sound depressing. You asked about my day-to-day. Very little of it actually involves building product anymore. So that sucks, right? Because we all, and I think all of the audience probably loves building products. That's why we're in this business. And when you're a CPO, you do very little of this anymore. But it does involve things that I think are even more interesting. So you build, like building teams of strong leaders, individual contributors, coaching them, helping them achieve their user and business goals, because you understand that they understand those goals because they're closer to the user, closer to the business, closer to the technical side. They understand them more than you do. So you're just here to help them. You can become kind of a servant of your own org, and that's great. If you have a great team of very strong people, that's really a great job. But you need to understand it doesn't involve much product anymore.
Yeah, I hear you.
All you have to do is get out of the way, lay back. You do have to make sure that all the goals that those people have set are connected, that they push in the same direction, which is a strategic direction that the management or the company sets. But that's easier.
I hear you. As a former PM turned CEO now, I definitely miss building. And my solution is to treat my company as a product. I have less time with engineers and designers, but I tend to think of my company as, okay, a product, and how I can apply the same mindset to whatever I'm building. And I've seen something similar happening with other executives, and that come from a product background. Yeah.
You have to like this. Like it's not given. Many people, they stop being into the details of the day-to-day, and this, you don't talk to users as much as you used to do. You don't talk to engineers as you used to. So but it's still very, very interesting in a very different manner.
Definitely, and in product we always say that we have to fall in love with the problem, not so much with the solution. So I'm curious, based on your experience, what are some of those hard problems that you had to solve, and how did you go about it?
Yeah, so I would put it slightly differently. So I agree that falling in love with the solution to the problem is probably like the antithesis of the PM job, right? If I had to summarize the PM job or the product leader in one sentence, that would be ensuring focus on outcomes, not on features, right? Like that's very simple as a statement. That's very difficult to achieve in reality, right? In the day-to-day, it's very easy to get stuck into the how to get the feature out instead of how to achieve the actual outcome. But maybe instead of falling in love with the problem, I would say falling in love with the vision, maybe. Often you don't necessarily solve a problem, you address an opportunity, or you even create a new space altogether that can create tremendous value. And the problem is not always, you don't always start from a problem, right? You can start from an opportunity or even from a dream, right? From a vision, from creating something that is completely new. And people don't know that it's a problem that they have, but you're still creating tremendous value for them, right? So in my case, it's not directly related to product management, but I think that's common to most PMs. What I passionately hate is the problem our society has with traffic in general, and that's why I love my job, because more largely the fact that we built our cities and our communities around cars, that's just a blunder that we did as human beings. The costs in real estate, in quality of life, in environment, in health, in pollution are astronomical, right? And being able to contribute to solving this problem is something I'm truly passionate about. So the vision of the cities of tomorrow that are built around humans and not around cars, but humans that still move, right? Hopefully when this pandemic ends, we will still want to connect to each other physically and be together in the same room and talk together. It's great that we can do those things online, but people will still hopefully need and want to move. So creating the vision of this moving society that is built around safety, around quality of life, around health, around scalability and sustainability, rather than around cost, is something I'm absolutely passionate about.
And are there any specific frameworks that you use to kind of break down a big problem into more actionable items?
Yeah, I will shamelessly recommend the framework that I introduced on the previous lecture at a product school, HOSCAR, HOSKR. This is the framework for product development that we use at Waze. It stands for hypothesis, objective, signal, and key results. And it's what I call the framework for philosophers, meaning that you start from a worldview, start from a vision that is adaptive to reality by through constant iteration and experimentation. So that's a framework I recommend. I recommend going to the previous lecture I gave on your platform and listen to it. I think you'll find it valuable.
Yeah, and we'll make sure to put a link on this interview as well, so it's easier for people to find it. And let's talk about leadership, because now it's very common to hear this term product leader, different from product manager, right? And it's true, because in reality, at least when I started my career in product, I had no idea of like the different steps I had to take. Some companies didn't even have a CPO. Still today, not all the companies have a chief product officer. It's still, they think of product as a sub-function of marketing or technology. Now I think there's much more definition, but still there's a lot of work in progress. So in your own experience, what are some of those key moments, key skills that help you jump from being a mid-level PM to truly own a product and become an executive?
Yes, that's a very good question. By the way, I think it depends on the organization also. Like, it's true, like it's not every organization needs to be a product-driven organization, right? That's not true for any organization, right? You have other organizations that need to focus more on operations or on legal because your IP is so important, or on technology and engineering, right? Like, it depends. I would say that for most consumer brands, it does need to be product-driven. And I think your question is very interesting because product is one of those disciplines in which the jump between, or the leap between being a product manager and a product leader is not a gradual one. It's not doing more of the same, right? Like, become a technical expert is being just more of an expert than being just a technical beginner, right? Like, you learn more, you know more, you think about things more in depth, etc., until you become an expert. For product, the product leader and product manager are fundamentally different disciplines, right? What's common to all of them is the absolute need for the person to be accountable for outcomes rather than for features or for outputs in general. That's common to PMs and to product leaders. But PMs and product leaders have fundamentally different jobs. Product leaders, in my opinion, are here to build teams, to coach them, and to empower them to make the right decisions for the users and for the business, right? For the PMs, this is your job to do this. This is your job to find the right. I don't think like I don't like the definition of CEO of the product, but there is the grain of truth in it, in that you are accountable for the product. You're accountable for the success of the product, right? There is a line, I don't remember who said it, that if the product succeeds, it's thanks to everyone, but if the product fails, it's because of the PM. That's very true, right? That's clearly on the PM if the product fails. So that's a lot of responsibility, and that's the job of the PM, right? The product leader is here to empower all the other PMs to make the right decisions and to help them to make the right decision through let's say org leadership, right? Like managing resources, managing hiring, managing processes, etc., and coaching them, of course.
So now, in your own product team, how do you like to structure the team and create career paths for people to either become better individual contributors, or at some point, if they want, to start being more people managers?
Oh, it's a very, very, very large and complex question. And I agree it's an important one. I think what I learned not a very long time ago is that it's very important to align expectations very early, that you might, as opposed to, for instance, in other disciplines like engineering, or you might not want to become a product leader. If you like actually building product, just so you know, it's not the right path for you, right? It's not the right track, because you will do less and less product as you go up in the ladder. And maybe that's not what you want, right? And that's, I think, for most PMs, that should be the norm, right? Not wanting to go up the ladder, right? But still becoming PM that are more and more experts in their own area. So aligning expectations, or like asking the person, just what do you want? Like, where do you see yourself in 5 years is key. It's key to the person, because they might, have as an objective to become a product leader or product manager of product managers, although this is not what they want and what they will be successful in. And it's also good for the organization, because not everybody can become product leader, of course, right? And it doesn't mean that necessarily that all the PMs are, people who didn't get product leaders.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm glad you brought this up, because we talk a lot about how to break into product, and I feel like we don't talk enough about how to grow a product career. And I think it's very important for people to realize that there are multiple options. You don't have to stop doing what you love to now become, a manager if that's not what you love. Like, you can truly grow as an individual contributor and become the best at it. The same way you can become a manager, the same way there are other options. Eventually, even CEOs. I will see more and more CEOs coming from a product background, which, in my opinion, I think it's good for the overall team culture. So in your case, Rapha, obviously learning is an important piece in your life. How do you learn these days? Because I don't believe that, we are all maxed out. Like, what is next? What's in your bookshelf?
I hope you won't find the answer disappointing, but this day I came back to learning guitar after a 15 years break. So that's, by the way, yet another proof that user resurrection is much easier than user activation. You can go back to something more easily than you can start it up. I'm also reading a lot about history, archaeology, philology. Those are like the things. This is actually what's on my bookshelf. All those areas I find them fascinating, and in the last couple of years I've developed a very broad interest around them. I think everyone needs to allocate serious time and efforts for things that enrich their lives in general as individuals, if they want to be successful in their careers. Making time for them is actually pretty easy once you're committed, but you have to really deeply realize and understand that this is something you need to take seriously. If you want to be a great PM, you have to allocate some time to something that interests you that's not related to work. Learn about, I don't know, philology is a great field, I think. But music, sports, could be anything that just enriches you as a human being, as a person. I think you will become a better PM. I think I've been there. I've had my periods in which I work until 10 p.m. and then I just go straight to bed and I open my book about product management or about great strategy, bad strategy. And at some point you become a smaller person. Like you're more limited. You're all about you're into your word and you're incapable of have a broader perspective on what the things you're building do to society, for instance, or are you really solving problems or addressing opportunities that are worth solving? So, if I had one recommendation for what should be on your product on your bookshelf, books that are not about products, about anything else that enrich you as a person.
I asked this question to other product leaders, and I see the common theme here is that they're just curious people. There's no good or bad answer. It doesn't really matter what you want to learn as long as you want to learn something. And somehow this will make you happy. This will make you a better person. And ultimately, of course, they will have a positive impact at work. But knowing that, there is this constant curiosity of learning more, trying, playing, it's so powerful.
Yeah, I agree. I think curiosity is definitely one of the traits that are I've been trying to cultivate. I'm not saying I'm a champion in any of those traits, but I think that there are a few traits that are positively correlated with career growth, right? Curiosity is one of them. Critical thinking is one of them. Empathy, of course. I think those things are important to cultivate. If you cultivate them outside of work, you'll see that your career will grow, even though that was not the goal at the beginning. I think you will grow as a person, and as a consequence, you will grow as a product person.
So switching gears a little bit, in product, we are constantly facing this the decision between building something versus buying something. SaaS is all the rage, and in many ways, it's important to outsource and piggyback on other people's tools so we can focus on core experience. However, Google has been very famous for building a lot of internal products in-house. So I also want to get your take on that, particularly for Waze.
Yeah, I think I would follow Marty Kagan's recommendation here around missionaries versus mercenaries. And when you buy something from a third part, it might help you in the short term to bootstrap more easily, but in the long run, you want a team of missionaries, people who are passionate about what they do and that will do the extra mile to make it successful. So I think I wouldn't give like a one answer that fits all. I think like it depends on the discipline, but like the core competencies that you have in your organization, product, engineering, design, UX research, the management, of course, goes without saying, the community, right? All those disciplines, the community management, they need to be in-house, part of people who are full-time on this, who are committed to this, or who share cultural traits with you, like the same culture at the org level, and that share a vision and share a sense of purpose. That's mission critical. That's not optional, in my opinion, to build great things, right? Of course, like we have things that are not critical, that not in the critical part of the business, you might want to buy or to outsource. That's totally fine. So, sorry, you were breaking up. I didn't hear the. Yes, absolutely. We dog food it internally, and that's something that's very useful. Yes, it's double-edged sword though, because Google users or Google employees are not typical users. So you think you're getting feedback, but at times, the wrong type of feedback is even worse than no feedback at all, right? Because you think you're going somewhere and you're not. So it's very, very dangerous. But if it's taken with a grain of salt, and you understand actually like what feedback you should be listening to and what feedback you should safely ignore, because those are not your users, it can be powerful.
Yeah, and I think it's good for the audience out there to know that working in product is not just working in a B2C product. There are so many B2B and other types of business models, but there are also a lot of internal products that might have less visibility in terms of users, but they're equally important, if not more, in order to support infrastructure.
Yes, yeah, I agree. Like, even like this term of product management is very broad. It encompasses very different disciplines. In fact, like it hides all the variants that you have in the role. If you're the PM for infra products in the cloud, SaaS, B2B, B2C. I started my career in product in hardware B2B. Like we had 5 users. That was like the whole total available market, right? And now I have 150 million users. So like there's very little in common between those two. The thing that always remains, I will go back to these points again and again and again, it's being focused on outcomes rather than on features, right? What do you want to achieve instead of what you want to build? That's the key.
I like that. I'm going to remember it, being focused on outcomes versus features. So just to wrap things up, I would love for you to give advice to your younger self.
I would say it's not about the destination. It's not about the journey either. It's about the company, right? Really, like not the company with a capital C, like the org you work in, the company you work in, but the people you work with. I think like that's the thing that's the most undervalued, probably. But to me, it's even more important than anything else, right? So people talk about either the journey or the destination. I would say it's the company that's even more important, who you're working with. And as long as you enjoy the company and as long as you trust the people you work with, you will have an unbelievable time building great products.
Thank you so much for your time as always, Rafa. Let's keep building great products.
Thank you. Thank you, Carlos.